In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement. I'm your host, Rick Everett with Market Advisory Group, joined by our full panel of guests in this episode. Jonathon McCoy, a financial advisor with Market Advisory Group. Pat Dougherty, CPA with Market Tax Services. Cory Hiebert, a Medicare advisor with Market Medicare Advisors. And Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us on this edition. We've got a lot to get into, Jonathon, so I'm going to jump right in. We talked before the show about how you met Dave and Jill and how their retirement plan evolved rather quickly, even through tragedy. Within 2 years of meeting, 2 to 3 years of them meeting you and the team at Market Advisory Group, the plan came together that quickly.
Yep, that's exactly right. So a little bit of the story of Dave and Jill. Initially, they had come to one of our Social Security classes, which we do a lot of in-person educational events around the metro areas. And when I initially sat down with Dave, Jill wasn't there, but Dave sort of had something to get off his chest, and it was mostly what they were going to be able to do to deal with some of the debt that they had taken on in the last 5 to 10 years of their working career, and how they could maybe unload some of this debt, pay it off, and maybe use that as the open door swinging open for them to be able to retire. So we originally sat down and talked about what was their Social Security strategy going to be. Fortunately, since they were both beyond their full retirement ages, they were both eligible to take their Social Security, continue working, double up on that income, pay down their debt very quickly, and within about 18 months, Jill was able to retire from her job. Well, within less than a year after Jill retired, unfortunately, Dave had cardiac arrest, had passed away unexpectedly early, and Jill was left with a little bit of a mess, because we had actually discussed with them multiple times it's a good time to get the estate plan together, and they were sort of procrastinating a little bit, as we all do. We get wrapped up in our daily lives, and very quickly Jill realized that it was going to be important for her and her family, their beneficiaries and children, to get that estate plan together. But through that process, even before then, when Jill was going through the process of retirement, we had introduced her to Cory and our Medicare advisory team with Market Medicare Advisors, to walk her through that transition from the work health insurance plan over to the Medicare plan. And then as Jill was dealing with the passing of her husband, the transition of the assets as well, that's when the Market Tax Service team came into play, making sure that we were handling their assets in the most tax efficient way possible. So I felt this was a pertinent story to sort of walk through not just the services that us at Market Tax Services provide, but the real life situations that people go through when they're dealing with a sort of a one-trick pony financial advisor that's only focused on how their money is invested. There can be a lot of these missing pieces here. We recognize that as financial advisors fairly early on before partnering with all these professionals, and realized we had to fall on the sword a little bit, that there was a lot of unmet need there oftentimes in the financial management world. We've got to be relying on these other guys to do their jobs for us and do our best job for our clients as well.
So a story that was tragic yet managed well with our team. Cory Hiebert, Market Medicare Advisors, share a few things to keep in mind when someone like Jill is retiring and transitioning from a work-sponsored health plan to a Medicare situation.
Yeah, well, the first thing we like to touch on there, and this happens more often than not, is whenever someone turns 65, they're told by friends, family, and strangers that they have to take Medicare. And that's not always the case. If you're going to continue to work and have the option to pick up that employer health care coverage, you are more than welcome to do so. Now, typically what we see is most people going ahead and starting Part A and delaying their Part B benefit when it comes to Medicare. If we have delayed that Part B benefit, we do add an extra step to our enrollment process. There are a couple forms that we have to fill out, not just as individuals, but our company, the people running our health plan, have to fill that out as well, going back and verifying that we have had health insurance this entire time that we've been Medicare eligible. And as long as we fill those forms out correctly, we will avoid any Part B penalty, which can be very costly. Now you can do this at any point in time while you are working, and you can make that decision to go ahead and transition over to Medicare. For those starting Medicare at 65, they are utilizing what is called their initial enrollment period. Now for those like Jill who decided to delay her Medicare, she used what is called the special enrollment period, giving her option to start Medicare later on.
From Cory to Pat with Market Tax Services. Pat, what are some of the things that you and the tax experts with Market Tax Services do to help a surviving spouse consider when they lose a spouse? How can that impact their actual tax situation for the surviving spouse?
Well, a lot of our clients, when they come into that situation, their surviving spouse thinks that they're going to have to file single for when they file their next tax return, and then the year that their other spouse passes away, they have one more year where they can file jointly, and the tax rates filing joint versus filing separate are very, very favorable, and we sit down and work with Jonathan and the financial team to see where they are and see if we can do something to reposition their portfolio to make it better tax-wise for the surviving spouse.
Gerald Eidelman, Eidelman Law Firm. This situation, tragic as it is and shocking when someone like Jill loses a spouse. What were some of her concerns from the estate planning angle?
Well, interestingly enough, the couple had come to see me and met with me before Dave died, and I began to give him some guidance regarding what the estate plan would look like. But of course, it wasn't completed before Dave passed away. So in this case, we have to look to see how we're going to transition the assets from the deceased spouse to the survivor. What assets get stepped up in basis, what assets are going to be inherited or transferred to the spouse, and then to plan to figure out what is going to happen to what is left there when she passes away to her children. That requires a lot of planning on her part, because she had a sizable estate that was spread out in many different accounts and different asset types, and it required searching through all of these, working together with Market Advisory Group to find all of the different accounts that they had, to bring them together and be able to prepare a plan that would take care of her assets when she passed away.
Now, Gerald, we know from the number of questions we get submitted to the show via our website that we have viewers of all ages, not just 50 on up.
That's
so
right.
What would your advice be to couples out there viewing the show about when to actually set an estate plan into the works?
Well, I think you should set up a estate plan into the works at any time as soon as possible. The reason is because estate plans are subject to change. You can change them over time. You're not stuck with what you plan. And had Dave and Jill had set up everything beforehand, some of the troubles or trial that Jill had to go through would have been ameliorated significantly. I mean, and had this been a situation where there was only the survivor was the one who died, it would have been a mess left behind. So it's always a good idea to have your estate plan and get it to evolve as your situation changes. I mean, a lot of times people start with having an estate plan when they have a first child. They're concerned about who's going to take care of my child, how is they're going to be taken care of, and so we set up a plan for that. And so at different stages of life, there's different needs, and you make changes along the way.
The holistic approach to retirement, that's what we provide here at Market Advisory Group. From the financial planning to the tax planning, estate planning, and Medicare advice. And we do it all under one roof. If you'd like to set up a complimentary no-obligation consultation, our operators are standing by right now at 816-548-2000. That's 816-548-2000. Or go to our website and you can book an appointment there or catch past episodes. IONretirement.com is where to go. We'll be right back with more Eye on Retirement right after this.
When people work with Market Advisor Group, they get a feel of sense of family. There's a lot of relationships that are made and going on in this conference room, and we really take a lot of pride in that and a lot of satisfaction in that.
Every client we work with, we make a custom-made plan to fit them and help reach their goals in life. Another thing that makes us unique is we want to meet regularly with our clients and have reviews.
Market Advisory Group, we have a process, and the process we take people through is first to understand what they have, understand who they are, and then we put together an income plan for them and show them how they can look forward to retirement and not look, though retirement is going to be a stressful time. It needs to be a stress-free time.
A few unique features of working with Market Advisor Group is holistic in-house financial consultants. We've got an in-house CPA, Joshua, an in-house estate planning attorney, Gerald, an in-house Medicare advisor, Bill. We rely on all of those professionals for, again, additional service within our consultative process, making sure that we've got the advice and the expertise behind the recommendations that we make.
You know, as an advisor, I'm not there to sell them one way or the other. I'm there to educate them, to let them know what their choices are. Then I try to help them make the right choice where they can save money and feel confident in their decision.
Absolutely the best part of my job is getting a stack of paperwork from somebody and they don't know what to do, and then I can turn around and give them back a tax return, but also to be able to explain what they can do next year that will give them a better answer than what they had this year.
When we've got clients that are calling and they need to help out a child or need to help out a grandchild or need to help themselves out and they're in a situation they didn't expect to be in, I really relish the opportunity to help them through that, help them make the educated decisions in somewhat stressful situations, because a lot of folks don't have that type of counsel.
We meet with so many people one-on-one in this office that don't ever end up becoming a customer or doing business with us, and that's okay. But when they leave our office, we know that we've helped them either get some answers to some of the questions they had or get some clarity on maybe their own path.
But one of the things that we hear all the time is, I wish I would have met you guys 10 years ago, because how much further could I be down the road? Well, Johnny Appleseed said, you know, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. And so if we can help people today going forward, that just brings an incredible amount of comfort and excitement for us to come to work every day.
Hi, and welcome back in to Eye on Retirement. Jonathan, in our last segment, we discussed the story of Dave and Jill and how their plan has evolved or had evolved with Market Advisory Group as Jill retired. Then Dave passed away unexpectedly, and Jill turned her attention to their nest egg and how it would impact the children. Tell me a little bit about how you came to meet Dave and Jill in the first place.
Well, as you just alluded to, Rick, it's a process that evolves, and this is the case with virtually everyone that we meet. And sometimes it evolves into the circumstance where we don't end up working with someone, where we're just going through our typical discovery process and getting to understand their situation better. And you may come and talk to Market Advisor Group, and we decide at the end of the first meeting that maybe it's best for us to part ways as friends. And that's perfectly okay. As long as we can provide some education along the way, help you make some more educated decisions, that's great. In Dave's circumstance, his main desire was to figure out if Social Security was going to be a bridge for him and his wife to be able to pay off some debt that they had accumulated over the years that would allow them to retire with a little more ease, with a lower budget without those debt payments. And really what it turned into was something much larger than that. They had come to realize that retirement was going to be approaching them much quicker than they ever thought possible, because of the Social Security strategies that we walked through in those first couple of meetings. Ultimately, Jill was able to retire many years sooner than she thought she would be able to. Dave continued working until, unfortunately, the day that he passed away, which is totally unexpected. The day that I got that call from Jill, it was heart-wrenching. You know, Dave and a lot of our friends, or a lot of our clients for that matter, become friends and almost like family here at Market Advisor Group. But ultimately, in Jill's circumstance, it was the fact that she knew to call us first. It feels good to be able to provide that service, but we understand that so many folks out there do not have a team to call and do not have a variety of experts and professionals that we can rely on to help with that transition. I'm not the tax expert, I'm not the Medicare expert, I'm not the estate planning attorney. And so we've got to rely on this team as our clients to make sure that we've got that cohesive plan all the way through. And for folks that are out there that don't have a team in place, ultimately you should be thinking about especially what are you paying for the service that you're getting. Those are some of the things we address very early on in our process.
From the financial advisor to the tax CPA, Pat, when someone is looking to get a financial plan for retirement together, how does the team at Market Advisory Group and Market Tax Services help with the transition of those accounts? Meaning, what are things to consider about the long-term taxability of IRAs, 401ks, Roth IRAs, and all the other types of accounts?
Well, in doing tax planning, Jonathan helps me out quite a bit because he gathers all their investments that they have, all the financial instruments they have. And then I could go look at those and see what kind of buckets they're in. They could be in a tax-free bucket, they could be in a tax-deferred bucket, they could be currently taxable. And tax planning tries to juggle all those three buckets and take the money out most efficiently to meet their personal needs.
Now, do the required minimum distributions come into play in tax planning?
Oh, they very much so, very much so. And as you get older, while you're taking the minimum distributions, the percentage goes higher and higher and higher. And we try to work with maybe doing Roth conversions, if at all possible, to help lower the minimum distribution, so that they don't have to take out that taxable money, especially if they're not going to need it for their personal expenses. It's silly to take money out and pay taxes on it when you're not going to use it.
Jonathan, it's a great process. And do you find that most people have a plan like that in place with their existing advisor when they first meet with the team at Market Advisory Group?
Most often not. And I find that a lot of times that's the reason people are coming to talk to us in the first place. They see us on Eye on Retirement. They see us and hear us on some of our radio shows or some of our in-person educational events. And we focus so much on that education so you understand really what are you getting into in this retirement transition process. But I find ourselves focusing, as much as we are as investment advisors, on the budget. What kind of expenses and living circumstances are you going to be going through? How are those things going to change? How does the Medicare bill fit into that? As well as the longer term, with Gerald here, the longer term estate planning impacts, especially for folks who don't have the estate plan in place. So we find that most people are not getting that holistic angle on their investment advice. They're only getting strictly, here's where you should place your money in the market, here's your risk-reward situation that your money can be placed in, and there's really nothing beyond that. There's nothing about the transition to how are you going to be spending this money to make sure that it lasts longer than you do, ideally.
Gerald, in this story, Jill felt like she was late to the game with their estate plan. Since they'd been procrastinating in order to get their estate plan put together, was it too late?
No, in this case, it wasn't too late. Sometimes it is, but this was not the case. Because when you have a surviving spouse, a lot of their assets are jointly owned or they transfer directly to the spouse. So unlike the survivor, when they die, they leave, if they don't have properly settled estate, they can leave a mess for their children where they have to figure out how they're going to divide up all the property. When it's just the spouse, one spouse that passes away, that is not as complicated. So she was still within the point where she could make a estate plan that would fit her needs, especially to provide for her children. She was very concerned about, now her husband had died, leaving a legacy for their children, and that was really crucial.
I think one of the fortunate things to keep in mind in Dave and Jill's situation was they were not from a blended family. So we oftentimes deal with folks who are from divorced or second or third marriage, and you've got children who may be married or going through a divorce. So you have these multiple branches of family members that you want to be able to protect them, and you also want to be able to protect your nest egg, whether it's within the bloodline or if you've got a certain segment of the family, whether, unfortunately sometimes we have family members who are estranged or there's a stressed relationship there of some sort. So that's where some people can get tripped up, I've noticed in our meetings with Gerald, and not having that plan in place ahead of time, the assets may go a direction that you never would have intended.
Expected, yes, yeah. When you have blended families, you have to plan very carefully. I mean, it's important also to realize that, you know, because they had access to, you know, our group, they were able to resolve, or she was able to resolve all of her outstanding issues in a very short, I mean, within our group, without having to go hunting for different people to work with.
Retirement planning is not a one-size-fits-all, and that's why having the holistic approach to retirement, like Market Advisory Group with the Financial Advisor and the Tax CPA, the Medicare Advisor and the Estate Planning Attorney all working hand in hand, comes into play to your benefit. If you'd like to set up a complimentary no-obligation consultation, our operators are standing by right now at 1-816-548-2000. Again, 816-548-2000. We'll be back with more Eye on Retirement right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back into Eye on Retirement. And Jonathan, today's show illustrates perfectly how even the best of executed plans don't always go as planned.
That's life.
That is life. People call in during or after our show every week, and they're asking for meetings with Market Advisory Group, asking general questions. Let's just address the big white elephant in the room. How much does it cost to work with Market Advisory Group?
So we reiterate every week that the complimentary consultation process is just that. It's a free experience to come in and talk with our team, whether it's Gerald, Corey and our Medicare team, Pat and our tax team. We've got several professionals available for you here at Market Advisory Group to meet with any day of the week. We do even evenings and weekends as well.
And you mentioned how the entire team is available for similar and oftentimes less than what people are already paying for just one person. How do people know what they're already paying?
That's part of our consultation process. So we ultimately have to go through a discovery process of understanding where are you coming from? What are your assets? Where are the investments? What are you paying your current advisor for the advice, in some cases lack thereof, that you're already getting? So through that exploration process, we do a portfolio review to understand what are your current expenses. We often find that your average expenses are somewhere between 1% to 2% per year with most portfolio management. And then we ask the question, are you getting the tax advice? Are you getting the Medicare advice? Are you getting the estate planning advice? In addition to that investment management, most often the answer is no, as we discussed a little earlier in the show. But when you decide to hire Market Advisory Group and our entire team to work on your financial plan, we stick to those similar price ranges while injecting as much value for that service and for that fee as possible. We typically find that our clients are paying us somewhere between 1 to 1.5% per year. Now, that's a general range. We don't really know exactly how much it might cost to work with us until we've gone through the process and sit down to look at what those actual recommendations may be. But hopefully that gives you some realistic idea of what it actually costs to work with us. And ultimately knowing that the majority of people that come through our doors are there for some education, are there for a little information, and may not ultimately end up hiring this great team to work on their plan. Ideally, we'd love to work with every single person, but we understand that how we do things is not going to be a perfect fit for everyone. That's why we encourage you to come in and see what we're all about and see if our process may benefit you.
Not every shoe fits every foot. And after you assess their portfolio expenses, what's the most common next question that people have?
Oh, well, sometimes it's how do we get started, but really it's a reiteration of what I just talked about. The next most common question is, so does that include the tax advice? The answer is yes. Does that include the Medicare advice? The answer is yes. Does that include the estate plan? So ultimately, the estate planning is one area where Gerald is more than willing to talk about, his expenses and his fee structure. But for a fair number of our clients, we've been able to pick up a good amount of the cost of that estate planning service, and sometimes the entire cost, even if it includes a will or a trust or power of attorney documents, the different things that Gerald talks about on a regular basis. Again, it depends on where you're coming from, what services you're going to need. But the key is we always discuss these expenses before someone decides to work with us. We have found too many times that people have been financially harmed by not understanding what they're paying before they sign on that dotted line.
Jonathon McCoy with Market Advisor Group, I'd like to thank you, along with the panel of Pat Dougherty, Market Tax Services, Cory Hiebert, Market Medicare Advisors, and Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm. Gentlemen, thank you all for being with us in this episode. If you would like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation to visit with our team, our operators are standing by right now to take your calls at 816-548-2000. Again, that's 816-548-2000. If you'd like to go online and see past episodes or submit a viewer question for one of our upcoming shows, you can do so at ionretirement.com. And if you'd like to book your own consultation, you can also do that on our website. The holistic approach to retirement, everything from the financial planning to the tax planning, Medicare advice, and estate planning. We provide you with all of this, and we do it all under one roof. Again, the number, 816-548-2000. That's all the time we have this week. I'm Rick Everett, reminding you we're keeping an eye on retirement.
This broadcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or is excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.